talk about good appearance or good grooming or looking your best, you probably think immediately of clothes or hairstyle or makeup.
Before it was a vintage aesthetic, it was armor. For women stepping into a man's world in the 1980s, the power suit wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a declaration. It was a uniform designed to project authority, to command respect, and to take up space in workplaces that weren't built for them. But how did the shoulder pads, bold colors, and sharp tailoring of power dressing become such an iconic look for a generation of ambitious women? How did a fashion trend become a feminist statement, a psychological shield, and an emblem of an entire decade of excess and ambition? In this video, we're breaking down the 80s power suit. We'll explore its origins, dissect its key elements, and look at the cultural forces that turned a simple suit into a symbol of a revolution. This is the story of how clothing became a tool for breaking the glass ceiling, one padded shoulder at a time. The birth of a uniform. To understand the explosion of power dressing in the 80s, we have to rewind to the late 1970s. This was a period of immense social and economic change. While women's participation in the workforce had been rising for decades, the 70s and 80s saw a significant acceleration of women entering professional and corporate roles in unprecedented numbers. These spaces had an established dress code, an unspoken uniform of masculinity and authority: the man's suit. For women, there was no clear equivalent. Enter John T. Malloy, a man often called America's first wardrobe engineer. In 1975, he published his influential book, Dress for Success, followed by a women's edition in 1977. Malloy's advice was pragmatic and prescriptive. He argued that to be taken seriously in the corporate world, women needed their own version of a uniform. His recommendation was a skirted suit, often in a conservative color, a look he believed projected authority and competence. He was essentially providing a blueprint for women to visually assimilate into the male-dominated professional sphere. His ideas were part of a larger conversation, laying some groundwork for what was to come. It wasn't just about fashion. It was a strategic response to a real-world problem. The thinking went that by adopting elements of male attire, women could deflect certain kinds of attention and encourage colleagues and superiors to see them as peers. It was a kind of sartorial rebellion, disguised as conformity. This movement found its perfect catalyst in the economic boom of the 1980s. The rise of yuppie culture, young urban professionals with disposable income and a desire for status, created a climate where conspicuous consumption was celebrated. The era's spirit was famously captured in the film Wall Street with the line, "Greed is good." Your clothes, your car, your watch, they were all markers of your success. And for the new wave of career women, the power suit became an ultimate status symbol. It was a tangible representation of their ambition and their arrival. The anatomy of the power suit. So what exactly made a power suit? A power suit? Well, it was anything but subtle. It was a masterpiece of tailoring and engineering, designed with a clear purpose. Every element, from the fabric to the cut, was carefully chosen to construct an image of unassailable authority. At the heart of the power suit, both literally and figuratively, were the shoulder pads. Perhaps the single most recognizable fashion element of the decade, shoulder pads were the engine of the silhouette. They created a sharp, angular, and wide line across the upper body, intending to create a more masculine, V-shaped torso that projected strength. It was a way for women to physically take up more space, to create an imposing presence in boardrooms where they were often the minority. As one analysis puts it, they were a means of leveling the playing field. As the decade progressed, the shoulder pad evolved. It became larger, more rounded, and even more exaggerated. Designers like Claude Montana, who was nicknamed the king of the shoulder pad, and Thierry Mugler, with his architectural and futuristic designs, pushed the silhouette to its limits. The shoulder pad wasn't just structural anymore, it was a dramatic, high-fashion statement. Women also discovered that these enlarged shoulders had a secondary benefit. They could balance out wider hips, creating a newly defined hourglass figure that was both powerful and uniquely feminine. Beyond the shoulders, the tailoring was precise and sharp. Jackets were often double-breasted with wide, imposing lapels, borrowing directly from men's suiting. The early power suits often featured a boxy, straight cut, designed to de-emphasize feminine curves. A key pioneer here was Giorgio Armani, who created deconstructed, elegant power suits that revolutionized women's tailoring and were quickly adopted by the professional class. The goal was to take the focus off a woman's gender and place it squarely on her professional capabilities. The color palette also tells a story. While the trend had a foundation in conservative, masculine colors like navy blue, charcoal gray, and black, it didn't stay there. As women grew more confident and established in their roles, the palette exploded. By the mid to late 80s, power suits were appearing in a dazzling array of jewel tones: fuchsia pink, royal blue, and vibrant purple. Fabrics became more glamorous too, with silk and satin becoming more common, even in the office. This shift signaled a new phase of power dressing. Women were no longer just trying to fit in. They were ready to stand out, proving that authority didn't have to be drab. Beyond the suit, blouses, skirts, and accessories. While the jacket was the statement piece, the ecosystem of garments and accessories surrounding it was just as crucial. These elements were where women could inject a dose of femininity and personality into the otherwise rigid uniform. Let's start with what was worn underneath. The blouse. The pussy bow blouse, with its soft, floppy bow tied at the neck, became an absolute staple. It was the perfect counterpoint to the harsh lines of the suit jacket, offering a touch of traditional femininity that softened the overall look without sacrificing professionalism. Silk scarves and cravats also served a similar purpose, adding a pop of color or pattern. When it came to the bottom half, the knee-length pencil skirt was the default choice, creating a lean, commanding silhouette. But the 80s also saw the confident rise of the power trouser. Designers like Giorgio Armani and Ralph Lauren offered women suit options with both skirts and wide-leg trousers, giving them more choice. The pantsuit, which had already emerged in the 70s as a symbol of feminist defiance, became a powerful alternative in the 80s boardroom. And then, there were the accessories. 80s accessories were not for the faint of heart. They were statements in their own right. Jewelry was big, bold, and often gold. Think massive, chunky earrings, thick gold chains, and large brooches pinned to the lapel. Pearls also had a major moment, seen as a classic and sophisticated choice that signaled good taste. Footwear played a practical yet symbolic role. While heels were standard, there was a common preference for more practical, low to mid-height pumps. This was a reflection of the working woman's reality. She needed to be able to stride confidently through the office. This practicality reached its peak with one of the most enduring images of the era, immortalized in the film Working Girl, the commuter sneaker. Women would wear comfortable trainers for their journey to work, swapping them for heels upon arriving at the office, a perfect symbol of their grit and determination. Finally, hosiery was essential. Sheer, barely black tights were a constant. But the decade also embraced patterned and textured tights, adding another layer of visual interest to to the meticulously constructed ensemble. The icons who wore the armor power dressing didn't exist in a vacuum. It was propelled into the global consciousness by television, film, and real-life icons who embodied its spirit. Perhaps the single most important cultural force was the primetime soap opera, Dynasty. Watched by a massive global audience, the show was as much about fashion as it was about family drama. The show's costume designer, Nolan Miller, became a household name with a reported weekly wardrobe budget of $35,000, the equivalent of roughly $90,000 to $100,000 today. The show's rival characters, the kind-hearted Crystal Carrington, played by Linda Evans, and the deliciously villainous Alexis Colby, played by Joan Collins, became fashion titans. Nolan Miller capitalized on the cast's features, making the broad-shouldered look a signature for the show's powerful aesthetic. The result was a weekly parade of razor-sharp shoulders, glittering sequins, and unapologetic glamour. Alexis Colby, in particular, became the ultimate archetype of the ruthless businesswoman who used her wardrobe as a weapon. The styles seen on Dynasty were so influential they even spawned their own clothing and jewelry lines. In the real world, prominent female figures defined different aspects of power dressing. In politics, British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher became synonymous with the tailored suit. Her style was severe and authoritative, designed to project unwavering strength on a world stage dominated by men. On another side of the spectrum was Diana, Princess of Wales. While not a corporate figure, she became a global fashion icon who masterfully used clothing to communicate. In the 80s, she embraced the power-dressing silhouette, but with a softer, more glamorous touch, projecting a modern and assertive form of royal glamour that captivated the world. Behind these icons were the designers who architected the movement. Giorgio Armani led with his beautifully tailored, deconstructed suits. In France, Claude Montana and Thierry Mugler presented a more extreme, avant-garde vision with their exaggerated shoulders and architectural forms. In America, designers like Donna Karan and Anne Klein created power suits that were both comfortable and attractive. Together, these designers forged the visual language of female ambition for a generation. The why: money, power, and culture. So, why did power dressing resonate so deeply? Because it was the perfect fashion for a perfect storm of cultural and economic forces. The 1980s was a decade defined by ambition and the yuppie pursuit of climbing the corporate ladder. The power suit became the ultimate symbol of this new aspirational class, an outward sign of professional success. For women, however, the suit was more than a status symbol. It was a shield. In entering male-dominated fields like finance and law, women often confronted hostile environments. The power suit functioned as a kind of psychological armor. By adopting a silhouette that mirrored men's clothing, women could project an air of seriousness, compelling colleagues to engage with their minds, not just their appearance. The costume design in the film Working Girl, for instance, was all about taking up space, creating a visual declaration of presence and a refusal to be intimidated. This choice was deeply intertwined with the era's feminist movement. While earlier feminism had fought for legal and social equality, a prominent focus in the 80s was on achieving power within the existing system, particularly in the workplace. The power suit became a symbol of this practical approach, representing a woman's right to compete for the same jobs and command the same respect as men. Now, not everyone was on board. Some critics argued that by mimicking masculine attire, women were just conforming to a male-defined standard of power. But for many, it was a necessary and empowering tool. And as the decade wore on, the style evolved to become more comfortable and distinctly feminine-friendly. The power suit proved that authority didn't belong to one gender. It could be tailored, colorful, and worn with confidence by anyone determined enough to claim it. The 80s power suit was more than just a trend. It was a cultural moment that tells a story of ambition, struggle, and empowerment. But what do you think? Do you remember the era of giant shoulder pads? Do you see its influence on fashion today? Let us know in the comments below what your favorite or least favorite element of 80s power dressing is. And if you're enjoying this dive into fashion history, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Like all dominant trends, the reign of the power suit eventually came to an end. By the late 80s and early 90s, the cultural mood shifted. A changing economic climate, along with the rise of grunge and minimalist aesthetics, made the exaggerated power suit look dated and excessive. The armor was shed for something softer and more understated. But the legacy of power dressing is indelible. It fundamentally changed how women dressed for work, and, in doing so, changed perceptions of women in work. It established the suit as a staple in the female wardrobe, a go-to option for projecting confidence that persists today. Modern workwear, with its tailored blazers and smart trousers, owes a direct debt to the pioneers of the 80s. Today, we see echoes of the power suit on runways and in street style, but with a modern twist. The oversized blazer is back, but it's styled with a new sense of ease paired with jeans, sneakers, or a simple dress. The bold silhouette is still a symbol of confidence, but it's no longer a rigid uniform. Instead, it's a versatile tool for self-expression. The 80s power suit was a product of its time, a sartorial solution for women fighting for their place at the table. It was armor for a battle that needed to be fought. And while the styles may have changed, the spirit of that fight, the unapologetic ambition, the demand for respect, and the belief that you should dress for the role you want is a trend that will never go out of fashion.